Our presenter will be Nelio Drummond, who is a senior principal scientist from Takeda Pharma. He will be presenting on development of patient-centric inhalers to meet the specific needs. Nelio, you have a word, please.
Okay. So thanks, Igor, for the introduction. Thanks for inviting me to this initial pre-teaser for the event that is happening in October. So I will share my presentation now. Can you see it well?
Yeah, it works. It works well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so today I'll give you a bit an overview about patient-centric drug product design and what can we do with regards to inhalation science or inhalation products, mostly the devices that are used. And I'll share a case study, not really related to a device, inhalation device, but to a spacer, which is also important when we talk about inhalation drug products. So just start with a bit of an overview about what is patient centricity, what is the model, what is patient-centric drug product design. So patient-centric drug product design is the science of identifying the comprehensive needs of a target patient population and use those needs then to design a drug product that can then meet the needs of the target patient population so that they can intuitively use the drug product, and this then will lead to higher acceptability, compliance, and efficacy of the prescribed treatments. But how can we perceive the healthcare model during provision? So as you can see in the image, the patient is expected to be at the center and interacting with every stakeholder involved in the provision, and this then allows to adequate communication exchange happening, which then will allow the healthcare providers to understand what are the specific needs of the patient and then identifying the right healthcare provision to meet the specific needs. At the same time, since the patient has an active voice in all this process, he will feel empowered by the selected therapeutic choice, and then this will also lead to higher efficacy of prescribed treatments, higher acceptability, and less higher compliance also. However, nowadays in the pharmaceutical industry, there's this famous sentence that I like to share in my presentations, which is you can deliver tomorrow's innovation if you're still using yesterday business models. And this is unfortunately still the case for the pharmaceutical industry because the business model is still the same for many years. And we also live in a highly regulated environment, which makes it more difficult to bring innovation. Of course, innovation comes, but it takes a lot of time to put it into place. And this has been the case also for patient-centric drug product design. However, we have seen a lot of developments happening in the previous years, which I will mention in the next slide. But with regards to the pharmaceutical pipeline, there needs to be a switch also on how it is perceived and how should be conducted. The first that we should consider is that we should think first in the patient before looking into the profit, because of course pharmaceutical industries, they have their own molecules. They want to ensure that the molecule goes to the market, and they mostly focus on the risk benefit profile, so evaluating efficacy of the molecule and the safety, but then they don't put so much emphasis of how the patient then will interact with the drug product that they are developing, and then this can lead to poor healthcare outcomes and increasing healthcare costs also because the efficacy is not there. So we need to also consider in every pipeline that the end user, which is the patient, and their specific needs are being considered early into the development process. The second is the scope of the patient within the clinical trials, because we recruit the patients to the clinical trials, and then we do all the safety profiles, we do the efficacy profiles. So we should not consider the patient like a subject that we use in order for the pharmaceutical industry to obtain the data that is required to bring the product to the market. But we should consider a patient like a partner, because throughout this process, the patient will be involved in the different stages of development, and his feedback will be very important for the pharmaceutical industry or the company involved in a specific program to understand how exactly the design should be done for that specific product, so that when the product is commercial, they can ensure that the target population can really use, administer, and take the most benefit from it. Also, since we are having nowadays a lot of digital innovation coming into play in the pharmaceutical industry, we are hoping that and expecting that patient-centric clinical trials will be expedited with this shift that is happening nowadays. So now I just wanted to give you a bit an overview of the path of patient-centric drug product design within the last years. So this, in 2009, there was a revision of the ICH-Q8 guideline, and which was stated that the product should be designed to meet the patient needs. So here already start seeing a focus on ensuring that the drug products are designed to meet the specific needs of patients. And then this, of course, led to other interactions. So in 2013, we had an EMA guideline for the development of pediatric medicines, and there was a lot of work done after this guideline was implemented. And we have seen with that work that was conducted that the assumption of gold standard for liquid medicines regarding patients, pediatric population was not really accurate, because a lot of clinical studies have shown that even neonates, like really 6 months, 1 year old babies, can swallow mini tablets. So mini tablets nowadays are being more prominent in the development programs in the pharmaceutical industry for pediatric populations. And then in 2020, the same kind of exercise was then shift to the geriatric population, because in the same way, older patients, they have issues swallowing tablets and capsules. So the same kind of reflection was conducted, and now there's also more emphasis and focus on the development of medicines that can really fit the needs of the geriatric population. Going forward, maybe we also have at some point guidelines for the development of patient-centric inhalers, because this is, as I will show you in the next slides, this is really nowadays is still a struggle. And also, like Amrit showed previously in his presentation, there's a lot of work that is done on formulation, on the formulation and device compatibility. But then if we don't also assess that the end user, the patient, is able to use that specific device to inhale the product, then the treatment will not work. So I always like to show this example, because it's really interesting, which is the consumer industry. So and it's a good example of how to implement a patient-centric approach. So in the consumer industry, the end user, which is the consumer, is involved very early in the development process of a product. And the consumer industry, of course, they do a lot of market research to understand what are the needs. So they search three topics mostly. So what is the appropriateness of the product that they are developing for the consumer, how the consumer will use this product, and how the consumer perceives this product. And by gathering this information, this will allow them then really to target the product to the consumer industry, and then this will ensure really that the consumer industry has the product that they really wanted to have in the end. And this is exactly patient-centric drug product design. We should use the same concept here. And the mobile phone is a really good example, because if we look back into 1973, the first Motorola that was developed, a very bulky and heavy device, which nowadays we have small TVs, which we also use to make phone calls. And if you think about it, kids, old patients, adults, everyone knows how to use a smartphone nowadays, because it's very intuitive. It's very easy it is very easy to use. So we need to apply the same approach into drug product development. So shifting now into pulmonary drug delivery. So drug delivery to the lungs is a very complex approach, which involves a lot of variables. So I'm just talking here about three. We have the patient, we have the device, and we have the formulation, and they, of course, are all linked together. And of course, if we can have the best formulation in the market, so which delivers 100% of the emitted dose, and we have the best device also, which is really combined to that formulation, works very well. But then if the patient doesn't know how to use the device, all that work goes in vain. So My presentation today is really going to focus on the introduction between the patient and the device and the considerations for ensuring that the patient knows how to use the device. If we look to the market nowadays, there's a multitude of inhalation products or inhalation devices, and they are very distinct between each other. So we can have MDIs, we can have DPIs. Within DPIs, there are many different types. You can have a blister, you can have capsule. There are also reservoir systems. And if you think on the patient perspective, this can be a really burden to understand how to use the devices, especially when there is a change from one device to the other. So if we really do not consider patient needs whenever we are developing medical device, whenever we are developing inhalation devices, then we are sure that the therapy will fail going forward. So what can we see nowadays in the scientific literature? So the data shows that in a real-world setting, meaning the patient really using the device and inhaling the product, they still struggle to achieve successful drug delivery, and the amount of administration errors are still quite significant. So here on the left side, I just want to show, this is from a study. You have the references below. So you can see here, so the blue bars are related to unsuccessful delivery, the orange partial delivery, and then the gray successful delivery. And the difference between this is related to a switch in the device. So on the left we have the control group, and then on the right that group then changed to another device. And we can see that there's increase in the number of patients with the unsuccessful delivery for partial and successful. So you can see here that when there's a change in the device, that it's almost 100% sure that the efficacy of that treatment will be reduced, because there's a new learning process for the patient to be able to use that device. In this other study, we can see here, so we have a comparison between three different types of DPIs and one MDI. Of course, for the MDI, there's a higher chance for administration errors because the mechanism is a two-way mechanism. So the patient needs to activate the device and inhale at the same time, while for the DPIs, the mechanism is activated by the patient to administer inhaling the drugs. So we obviously see less errors for the DPIs, but still, depending on the type of DPI that you are using, there's a high variability on the number of errors, and this also then is linked to the type of device and the mechanism that it's used for using that device. So definitely here we need to whenever we are developing a device that is suitable for a specific formulation, we need to involve the patient early into the development process to ensure that device design is really can be intuitively used by the patient to ensure that the efficacy of the prescribed treatment is accordingly. I came across this study, I think 2 months ago. So this is a really recent study, and all that I have mentioned before, it's related to usability. So usability of the device, and how can we ensure that the patients know how to use their devices? They need to do training, and I think training is something that nowadays is still it's done, but we could still do more. And that's why I want to show this this study here. So they did a literature review on clinical studies to try to understand how many studies really were assessing the technique of the patient to use the device and during administration. And so you have here two columns. So the column, this is really related to the type of molecules. So on the left you have mainly small molecules used for asthma, COPD, etc. And then on the right you have regarding biologics. But the outcome is the same for both types. So you can see here that in 118 studies, only 14 studies reported the technique of the patients while using the devices, while on the right one, from 54 studies, only one reported the inhalation technique. So here we're really seeing a trend that there's not so much focus put into how patients use the devices, and this is really important to ensure that the treatment works, because like I mentioned, the formulation and the device can be the best in the market and they really work together, but then if the patient doesn't know how to use it, there is no treatment at all. So, and this study really shows that there's more emphasis should be put on the interaction of the patient with the device, and we need to do work on that. So from this study, there was a consortium that was created, which is the ADMIT, so the Aerosol Drug Management Improvement Team, and they realized that there's something that needs to be done here regarding clinical trials. So we really need to ensure that the technique is assessed during clinical trials. So they have created this consortium, and they have developed a checklist which can be used in clinical trials for inhalation products to ensure that the technique is assessed. And they also have a website online which can be very helpful for patients. It gives an overview of all the different inhalation products on the market, on the devices, how to use them, and lots of information. So when we think about patients with respiratory diseases, they already live every day with the issue of having to breathe, difficulties of breathing, and then they also have the burden. Okay, I need to use this device. I don't really know how to use it. I'll try, and several times during the day. So there's a lot of burden here for the patients. So we really need to ensure that we are providing the patients with the user-friendly devices that can be intuitively used. And of course, here patient centricity really plays a key role. So we really need to have patient feedback in order to design the device according to their needs. So we must ensure that the patient is involved early into the development process, and that we use their opinion and feedback to design the devices accordingly. So this is the case study that I like to show because I really like how it was designed, and it gives a really good patient-centric approach into the development. So this is from Trudell Medical, a company that has inhalation products, and they have designed this process to develop a spacer that can be used by patients. So basically, we have 4 phases. We have phase 1, which is initial problem statement. We have phase 2, which is the concept, the design concept. Phase 3, industrial design, which they really tested if the devices would work or not. And then design engineering, doing some optimization. So they did an initial survey to understand why patients don't like spacers, why they don't use it, because they can be very convenient for MDI therapy. There were a multitude of answers, with the biggest one being too big to carry. So the main insights that they received from the patients as a feedback was a main negative factor is the portability. Because of the increased size, they feel embarrassed to use it outside of their home setting. So they would have preference for something they can put in the pocket and easy to take with them. And something that can be discreet, so that people don't really look at them when they are doing their inhalation therapy. And they would have preference for a 2-in-1 design, so a combination between the spacer and the MDI. So they took that feedback, and they focus in using that for the design. So they focus on 2-in-1 chamber case. They developed 2 prototypes, and then they did a handling study to understand which prototype was better. So we have here the images of the prototype. Looking just with a quick assessment, I would expect that the audience would think that the A would be the selected one, because it's smaller and space, and like mentioned before, the size tends to be a key component for acceptability. However, the study showed that the B, the symmetrical shape, was the most preferred for the patients, and the main reason was not how they could handle it, but how it well fitted to their pocket whenever they were taking it with them. So we can see that sometimes really the reason for acceptability might also not be only related to the design, but also how the patient handle it and how can he transport it. So many variables contributing for that. So the phase 3, they did an industrial design development. So they tried to understand the patient language and put that into the design. So they tried to also improve the usability, and they did 10 designs from which 3 were prototyped. So we can see here on the image the 3 designs, and then this was the final one that was selected. And as you can see, this is a 2-in-1. So you have the MDI can be placed inside of the case, and the case also works as a spacer. So then they went into feasibility studies to understand if really this spacer would improve the inhalation therapy. So the three main inputs from the patient that were very important was the ability to open the case. They could have easy and quick access to the MDI and also intuitive use. And here we can see the results. So on the left side, you have the use of the MDI together with the spacer that they developed, and on the right side we have the spacer alone. So you can see that the same emitted fraction can be achieved with a 2-second delay for the use of the spacer together with MDI, as comparison to no delay at all for the MDI alone. So here we can see that we can reduce a bit the patient dependency on the interaction with on the combination of activation with the inhalation with the use of the spacer and the design that was conducted. So this is the end result. You can see you have the case here, which you can put the MDI inside, and at the same time that case works as a spacer for the inhalation therapy. So in summary, I think my main point that I would like to present here is that we really need to consider patients and their needs whenever we are developing drug products. So using the patient experience to design the devices for inhalation therapy will help us to refine and reframe the problem statement. It will help us to ensure that we obtain the most suitable design for the patient to use. And we also have an understanding of the value of repeated usability studies, because we can do a usability study, we can gather the feedback from the patient population, and then we can use that feedback to design the device again so that the process can be improved. So as a final comments from me, and as an outlook going forward, I really think that with regards to inhalation therapy and inhalation devices, of course, formulation science will always be linked to it, but I'll see also, I'm expecting to see also contribution from digital healthcare, artificial intelligence, and hopefully a lot of patient centricity involved. And we already have on the market some digital inhaler devices that can be linked to your mobile phone, and then you can really see how is the therapy going, if you need to improve something or not. And then we can also link this data to the healthcare provider so that we can have a better follow-up together with the patients. So I'm really expecting and hoping that we will go in this direction to ensure that patients really know how to use the devices and that they can achieve the desired inhalation therapy going forward. So just to finalize, although I'm an employer from Takeda, all the opinions stated here are solely mine and not from the company that I'm representing. And I would like to thank you for your attention and open to any questions.
Nelia, thank you very much for the very concentrated presentation. Yes, this is the time for Q&A section. Actually, we have already got a question from Diana. I will put it on the screen. So, hi Nelio, on slide 8 on the right-hand side graph, where would soft mist inhalers fall in terms of administration errors?
So let me just pull up that slide.
Sure.
Honestly, I don't have that data, so I will rather not assume. So the data that I showed and the devices that were involved was what was included in the study. Thinking about soft mist inhalers, I mean, I don't have enough knowledge or data to give an answer on that and where it would fall, and I'd rather not do it not to lead to wrong conclusions. So apologies for that, but yeah, I don't have that knowledge here at the moment to provide an answer on that.
Great, thank you.